All right. I know I'm a little bit early, but that's better than me being late, especially since I had updated my computer. I just wanted to make sure that everything is good. Hopefully, you can see my screen. You have had a wonderful week, and we know that this Sunday is Mother's Day. So I'm going to come to you at 7 a little bit later in the day just because you might want to be celebrating your mother, right? Because they're always right, gosh darn it. How does that even happen? So let's get to it. Hi, Marily. Hello, hello. So let's get to it with our first question. Number 172. Oh my goodness, we've gone through almost 200 questions. I'm going to have to come up with some more. So, 172. A vacant lot is contaminated with hazardous waste from a previous owner's operations. A developer purchases the lot at a discount, knowing about the contamination, planning to clean it up and develop it. Under CERCLA, the developer is what? So we got this lot. We knew it was contaminated. You're going to get it at a discount, clean it up. We know CERCLA. Now, CERCLA, I don't know why I can't memorize what CERCLA stands for, but I was prepared for this with our first question. I know that CERCLA stands for Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act. CERCLA. And it's all about the fact that if you have a piece of land and it's got yuck stuff on it, you can't just leave it. Everybody has to clean it up. Anybody who's responsible with it, to it, alongside of it, whatever, they all have to clean it up. So knowing that, let's look at our answer choices. A, hello, Miss Caroline. A vacant lot is contaminated with hazard. Oh, that's the question now, isn't it? A, exempt from liability because they did not cause the contamination. Well, no, I know that's not true because, yeah, they're going to get their money. Y'all are going to clean this up. Then we've got B, potentially liable as a current owner, but may qualify for the innocent purchaser defense if they conducted appropriate environmental due diligence. I mean, they don't necessarily qualify. They may qualify, but they knew. Hmm. Potentially liable. I don't hate it. I don't love it. Let's skip that one. C, liable only if they fail to complete the cleanup within 2 years. No, you're going to clean it up. You're liable. Or D, always exempt if they plan to remediate the contamination. We know that's wrong too. Circular says everybody is cleaning this up. So yes, perfect. B from Caroline, B from Marily. I love it very much. Our answer is B. Yes. We love this. You know, I was looking back at my numbers, ladies, and some people can't be here with us, but I do get people watching after this is over, which is awesome. I like that. So, hello to you people watching later on. Try to join us one day if you can, but if not, we'll hold you down. 173. A seller signs an exclusive agency listing. During the listing period, the seller's coworker, who learned about the property through a casual conversation at work, not through any broker marketing, contacts the seller directly and they have agreed on a sale. Is the broker entitled to a commission? Well, let's see here. You watch them over too. Good, Marilla. Yay, that makes me happy because if you can learn from it and kind of remember it, that's one step closer to passing. So we know it is an exclusive agency agreement. That means it is not an exclusive right to sell. We know these are two different things because if it was an exclusive right to sell, we know the broker who's listing the property gets paid no matter who finds the buyer. But if the seller finds the buyer in an exclusive agency listing, if the seller finds the buyer, then in that instance, a broker would not get paid. And this question, well, let's look at our answer choices. Yes, because any sale during the listing period triggers the commission. That's not the right answer because that would be exclusive right to sell. No, because under an exclusive agency listing, the seller retains the right to sell the property themselves without paying a commission. Okay, I like that one, provided the broker was not the procuring cause. Liking that one. C, yes, but only a reduced commission of 50%, you wish. Or D, no, but the broker may sue the seller for breach of contract. Yeah. Nope. Our answer is B. Lovely job, ladies. You got this one right. And hopefully, we're getting in the habit of kind of figuring it out. No worries about being late, Carolyn, on YouTube. No worries. I was a little early today, so that is not you. And you know that you can always go back and watch the beginning, what you missed. All right. Hello, Miss Anita. All right, 174. Let's hit it. A property owner in a flood zone allows their flood insurance policy to lapse. During the lapse period, a flood causes $50,000 in damage. The property owner then renews the policy and files a claim for the damage. The insurance company will most likely. All right, so they didn't update their flood insurance policy, and now there's damage. Okay, then you renew the policy. Come on now. Have you met insurance companies? Is it A, pay half the claim as a compromise? B, deny the claim because the loss occurred during the policy lapse period and is not retroactively covered? C, pay the claim since the policy has been renewed? Or D, pay the full claim but increase future premiums? Look, anybody that's dealt with any type of insurance already knows this answer is B. Let's see, let's stop playing. Why was I not born to a family that owned like an insurance company? Because they be making bank and they do not like to pay out. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You did twice. I mean, ugh. All right. 175. Math. A property has an annual NOI of $95,000. An investor purchases the property at 7.5% cap rate. If market conditions improve and cap rates compress to 6.5 with the same NOI, what is the appropriate appreciation in property value? Okay, so let's look at what we got here. When you bought it, it was a 7.5% cap rate, and now it is 6.5. So your cap rate is getting lower. And the question is it better to have a lower cap rate or a higher cap rate? Is it better to have a lower cap rate or a higher cap rate? Now, remember, a cap rate is telling you how risky a property is to purchase. So we have to think about this, right? And let me go to cap rates because I think here I have a slide that will help you understand cap rate. Here we go. Cap rates, net operating income. All right. So hopefully this will help you. So you're seeing here, when there was in this example, when it cost you $25 to buy $1 of NOI, you have a 4% cap rate. Right? And it could cost you $20 to buy $1 of NOI, and that's a 5% cap rate. So the higher the cap rate, the higher the risk. The higher the cap rate, the higher is the risk. So it depends, Caroline. I see you saying the higher is better, but it's going to cost you more money to buy. How do I say this? It's going to cost you more money to buy it. If it's less risky, it costs you more money. Does that make sense? Or let's do it this way. Let's kind of show it to you. All right. So let me go back to my questions here. We know the formula, and I'm going to put this in, I was just explaining this to somebody, but I'm going to put this in, what do you call it? T-bar. So if you take NOI and you divide it by the cap rate, we get value. Right? So we got, if this is our formula, we got two options here. So we could have the 7.5% cap rate, So that would be 95,000. If we divide it by 7.5%, we would get 95,000 divided by 7.5%. You're going to get 1,266,666 repeating. Or if we do a 6.5% cap rate, we're going to do 95,000 divided by 6.5%. And that's going to be $1,461,538 and some change. So notice this is a higher value, right? So the higher the cap rate, the higher the risk, right? So and that makes it worth less money. Right? So when the cap rate was higher, it's only worth 1.2 million. When the cap rate was lower, it was worth 1.4 million. Right? So the lower the cap rate, the higher the value. I got to come up with I'm going to write that down. I got to come up with some way to make that easy. Like the higher the risk, the lower the cap rate. The higher the risk, the higher the cap rate. Yeah. Let's try to figure something out. But knowing that, no worries, new and improved. No worries that you're late. We are here. So we know it is $1,461,538. That is our answer D, and boom. I'm going to work on that because it's so backwards, y'all. And it's not just me. It's not just you. I too have to think about it. I have to go, wait a minute. Okay. And I've been telling myself the higher the cap rate, the higher its risk. And if it's risky, you generally aren't going to pay as much money for it. You're going to pay more money for something that's stable. Think about Hondas, right? You pay more money for a Honda because it's more stable than maybe a Kia, right? A Kia is less stable. It's not going to be as stable 20 years from now. So you pay less money. So there you go. Maybe I'll do something with cars and Hondas or something like that because that's one good way. Oh, it's you, Valerie. Oh, and I saw your email this morning. I just needed to get back to you. So I will be emailing you back. All right, 176.
Uh,
A
Candice,
property owner. Go ahead. Somebody had a question? Go for it, Anita.
yeah, I have a question. Can you scroll down a little bit? I just want to see because the question is asking what is the appreciation, right? What is the approximate appreciation in the property value? So do we not subtract? We figure out the cap rate of 7.5 and then the value of 6.5 and then we subtract 7.5 value
Oh,
to the
you know what?
6.5.
I didn't even. You are absolutely right. What is the approximate appreciation and value? You know what? You are 100% correct. I didn't even stop to think about what I was doing. I just saw my answer there. Hello. You were just checking on me. Wow. You said, oh, and they somebody else said it's car stuff. And sorry for my people on via YouTube. I don't think I shared my sound, so you may not have been able to hear her question, but her question or statement really was Candace did not answer the correct question. Boom. See what happens when I don't go back and read myself? It's not just y'all. It's not just y'all. So we need to find the difference between 1.4 million and 1.2 million, which is approximately, let's see, 1.461453. And I'm going to subtract 1,266,666.6666. And the difference is 190 some
Or
4,000.
something.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's going to be A. Good job catching
Yeah.
that. I'm sorry. I was so in my head thinking about rates. I had the right answer for what would the value be worth, but I didn't answer the stinking question. So guys, don't be like me. And good job, Anita. Anita is officially my second teacher. She was testing you all. She gets an A. Hmm. I get
No,
an
but
F
but
for
Candice,
fail.
Yeah, this is a basic problem I have noticed, while practicing a lot of practice exams, we do not actually complete the question. We know what's the cap rate and figure out, and it's not just you, it's with most of us.
Everybody.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's with everybody, right? We don't know actually what is the question is asking at the end. Sometimes we don't read the question completely and just see the option. Okay, yeah, this is here. I got the answer. Let's click it. But yeah, I was like, I got the answer, something else, 194 something, and then okay. Anyways, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
no, you are 100% right. And you know what? Even teaching in person, like a real class, sometimes I start answering questions that other people have, and then I forget to go back to what the question is. So you're 100% right. And it helps for people to hear it's not just them. So many times people are like, but I knew the answer and I chose the wrong one. Yeah, it happens. We just have to be more careful. I have to be more careful. So, all right, 176. This is why we should be allowed to take this test in groups, but we're not, so oh well. A property owner installs a solar panel system valued at $30,000. The system is bolted to the roof, wired into the electrical panel, and was purchased with a separate solar equipment loan. A dispute arises between the mortgage lender and the solar loan company about whether the panels are real property or personal property. Which factor most strongly supports classifying the panels as real property or a fixture? Oh, and just let me stop for a second because Val said she started reading the question at the end first and go back. Yep, you were doing the same thing. We all do it. And everybody's going to have their way to figure it out. But back to this question. You know what? Maybe we'll make a habit of doing this. Which factor most strongly supports classifying the panels as real property? Well, we know that if we're talking about is something a fixture, the best way to tell if something's a fixture is what does the contract say? Now, we don't have a contract here, so that means we could think about the acronym Maria, right? We can think about the acronym Maria, or some people, and I usually teach it as Irma, right? And if I teach it as this, let's just go with Irma. We're going to look at the intent. We're going to look at the relationship. So that what was your intent? Did you mean it to be a fixture? Then the judge is going to look at what's the relationship between the real property and the person who attached it. How did you attach it? That's going to be the method. And then you've got, did you adapt it? The more you adapt it and made the real property customized for that thing that we're wondering if it's a personal property or not, then the more likely a court would say, oh, this is a fixture. So for this one, I usually take which factor most strongly supports classifying the panels as a real property. I would say in this case, it would be our method of attachment because the question says it was bolted to the roof, then it was wired into the electrical panel. I mean, to me, the fact that the method of how you did it is going to be very, very strong here. But let's see what our answer choices are. We have A, the method of attachment. All right, I like that one. Bolted to the roof and permanently wired into the building's electrical system. We got B, the fact that the panels generate income through energy savings. Okay, well, no, that has nothing to do with it. We don't care how much it's worth or how much money it could make you, doesn't matter. C, the solar company's intent to retain ownership. No. Or D, the high cost of the system. Nope, value never counts. So our answer is A. Nice job, yeah. Y'all, nice job. All right. 177. A landlord leases commercial space to a restaurant. The lease specifies a base rent of $4,000 a month plus 4% of gross sales exceeding $50,000 a month. And a month where the restaurant's gross sales total $82,000, what's the total rent due? So, total rent due. I'll come back to that. Well, I know that you're going to have to pay base rent of $4,000 plus 4% of sales exceeding $50,000 a month. And since your sales exceeded 50,000, it was 82. We know our answer is not C. It's got to be higher than C. Now, we have to pay on gross sales over $50,000 a month. Well, you had $82,000 in sales, but we're paying anything over $50,000, and that's $12,000. We need to pay 4% of that $12,000. I feel like that's something I should be able to do in my head, but oh well. So $12,000 times 4%, I get 480. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So did I do that right? 4% of gross sales exceeding $50,000 a month, and restaurants sales. Oh, no worries about being late, Miss Rosalinda, with the restaurants gross sales 82. So did I do that? I feel like that's not right. That can't
Yeah,
possibly be.
yeah. 82 minus 50 would be 32K.
Yeah, I was like, that can't be right. That can't
Yeah.
be right. 32 times 4%. I was like, that number can't feel right. Boom. Clearly, I did not have my Wheaties today. So let's try this again. 32,000 times 4%. That is 1280. That feels better. I was like, just looking at those numbers, I was like, that's not right, Candace. It can't be. All right. Now, if I take that $4,000 and I add to it the 1280, I'm going to get 5280. And that is A. Guys, that made me think this 5280, that's 5,280, but that number sounds familiar. 5280. What does that number have to do with? Can anybody tell me? You've seen 5280 before.
Yeah,
What? Go ahead.
it's with the area when we do the area 5,280 feet.
Okay, 5,000. Well, you said area, but yes, it does have something to do with 5,280
Tomatoes. When you
feet.
said 528 tomatoes, I remember that. Yeah.
Yes,
So,
that's
yeah.
5 tomatoes. That is the
Yeah.
number of feet in a mile.
Mile. Yeah, yeah, yeah. In a
I see what
mile.
they did here. 5 tomatoes. I don't know if AI did this on purpose or not, but 5 tomatoes. There are 5,280 feet in a mile. And how many square feet in an acre? 43,
43560.
560. Yep, square feet in an acre. There we go. So I'm glad that 5 tomatoes. I was like, what? Huh? Yes. Ching. I love it. So that was our answer 177. Our answer is A. Good job, us. 178. A buyer assumes a seller's existing VA loan. 2 years later, the buyer, who is not a veteran, defaults. Which statement is most accurate regarding the seller's VA entitlement? So, which statement is most accurate regarding the seller's VA entitlement? So there was a buyer who existed a buyer who assumed the existing VA loan. Then the buyer defaults. Okay, who's at fault here? A, the seller's VA entitlement may remain tied to the assumed loan unless the buyer is an eligible veteran who substitutes their own entitlement. B, the seller's entitlement is permanently lost once the loan is assumed. C, the seller's VA entitlement is fully restored when the buyer assumes the loan. Or D, VA loans are never assumable. Well, first, we can just get rid of D. VA loans are assumable, and I happen to know that if the VA loan is assumed by somebody who is not a vet, that vet that originally got the VA loan, their eligibility does not clear up. It does not. So it's not C, the seller's VA entitlement is fully restored. And D, the seller's entitlement is permanently lost once the loan is assumed. No, we're going to go with this one for A. The seller's VA entitlement may remain tied to the assumed loan unless the buyer is an eligible veteran who substitutes their own entitlement. Now, I was just tutoring a student the other day, and I wanted to remind them while you're taking practice questions, it always helps. You've heard me kind of talking through and saying, oh, what do I know? But here's my question, if anybody can answer it. What's the difference between a VA loan versus an FHA loan? What is the difference between a VA loan and an FHA loan? Okay, Caroline, so sometimes a VA loan um could be for what am I trying to say? Could be no down payment. That's what I'm trying to say. Sometimes VA loans will be no down payment because of the difference between the VA loan and the FHA loan. All right. And you said for VA,
Is a
the
certificate of
certificate of
eligibility? Yes.
eligibility, that is different
Yeah.
too. And a VA loan, you get a certificate of eligibility. But specifically, how is this different from an FHA loan? And it comes down to why the VA loan could be 0% down. And that has to do with, remember, an FHA loan is going to be basically insurance. It's the government providing the mortgage insurance premium. The bank could still take a loss, just not as big, versus a VA loan is a guarantee. So if if the loan is made by the bank, the borrower defaults. In a VA loan, the bank is guaranteed to make back the money that was covered by the certificate of eligibility. I don't know if I spelled guarantee right up there, but you get the point. So sometimes it's good as you're studying just to think about the difference. Oh, and look, Val got it 100% covered by the government if default. Yes, now I want to be clear, Valerie, because I know people you all may not be able to see it in the Zoom room, but it's 100% covered up until the entitled amount. So if your certificate of entitlement or your letter of entitlement says, "Oh, we'll cover you up to 200,000," but then you borrow 300,000, they're only guaranteed to get that $200,000. It doesn't cover anything more than that. All right, 179. A real estate broker holds earnest money deposits in a trust account. Okay. The broker's operating account is running low, so the broker temporarily borrows $5,000 from the trust account with an intent to repay it within 48 hours. Which statement is most accurate? So we're looking for the statement most accurate. What's accurate is that somebody wants to go to jail. We know you can't take monies out of your trust account, earnest monies, trust monies. You can't do anything with them besides the job that they were there for. And the job of the trust monies, in this case, the earnest monies, is not to, pad your bank account. So is it A, this is acceptable? I don't even have to finish reading it. It's not acceptable. Boom. B, this is permissible. No. C, this is permissible. No. The answer by definition has to be D, but let's read it. This constitutes commingling and or conversion of trust of funds and is a serious violation regardless of intent to repay. There we go. Our answer is strongly D because you can't do that. It's stealing. And nobody looks good in federal prison orange except Jason Momoa. He looks even better in nothing, but he doesn't, he looks good in federal prison orange too. I would assume, 180. I'm going to get a restraining order against me from that man. I really am. Does online harassment and imagination count? I don't know. 180. An appraiser is valuing a unique historic church being converted to residential use. The income approach yields $420,000. The sales comparison approach yields $480,000 using limited comparables, and the cost approach yields $650,000. Which approach should the appraiser give the most weight? So we've got this unique historic church that's being converted into residential use. Okay, what do we think? So we know we've got 3 different ways to think about this. I mean, this one's hard because it is unique, but it is being converted to residential use. And what if they do rent it out? Okay, let's see what our answer choices are. A, the appraiser should reconcile all 3, but may give the most weight to the cost approach due to the uniqueness and limited comparables, while considering the other approaches for reasonableness. Not a bad answer. B, the sales comparison approach, because market data always controls. Well, that's not true. What if it's an income producing property? What if it is a really unique property that you may not have market data to choose from? C, income approach, because the property is being converted to income producing use. I mean, it doesn't say that, so I can't assume that. D, the cost approach, because unique property should rely on reproduction cost, which in theory could be true, but remember, this is a great example of the best answer choice. And the best answer choice would be A. They could reconcile all three, but will give the most weight to the cost approach. So D, yeah, it's not wrong, but A is our better answer. Okay. And I wouldn't say should, most will usually would be a better term there, but so
Candice,
yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I'm so sorry to interrupt here.
That's okay.
I have a question here, right? I know A and D absolutely correct, right? Because if
Mhm.
you go with the cost approach, definitely the reproduction costs rely completely on this one, on the unique property. And answer A is also correct. So I was like debating between both, either A or D. How do you choose which one is the better choice? Because whatever you click, if A is not correct, D is correct, you're losing on that point. So
This
how do you really decide?
because it covers A covers the most. I mean, the fact that in this case it is being converted for residential use, and then it could possibly be used to come up with money, once when it's done, and it says being converted. I think that makes it a little iffy. And remember when I was talking even before I looked at it, an appraiser is going to take into consideration all three, right? They are going to take that into consideration. And it says reproduction, so you could be reproducing it, or if you're not reproducing it, you could be, I was going to say recreating. It could be reproduction, or it could be what's the other term? It could be a reproduction, or it could be a replacement, right? You could have reproduction, or you could have a replacement. Right. And depending on what we've got going on, it could be better that we're going for the replacement value instead of the reproduction value. So A is just a more complete, covers all your bases answer.
Got it. Got it. Thank
That
you.
makes sense. Oh no, you are asking
Yeah.
some great questions today. You are on fire. I'm glad one of our brains is on fire today because mine is not, but you are asking great questions there. I'm like, did I eat today? Let me think about this, y'all.
I just had ice cream.
I had a spoonful of ice cream earlier, but I don't think I've eaten today. Wondering why my brain's not functioning. Probably because it doesn't. I'm like, I don't think I've eaten today. I was gonna make some crepes, but then I realized I needed to go grocery shopping, and my groceries will be delivered later. So no crepes yet. I need to pull it together. All right, 181. Also, if my doctor's ever listening to this, they're just gonna shake their head. A property management company discovers that a maintenance worker has been stealing supplies from the storage room over several months, totaling approximately $3,500. Send them to jail. No, that's not the answer. The property manager failed to implement inventory controls despite the building's owner's repeated requests. In a lawsuit by the building owner, which claim against the property manager is strongest? I would say that this question would probably fall more into a law question, but let's try answering it. So we know that the property management company knows somebody is stealing, and then they don't make any changes, even though the building owner repeatedly asked them to. So in a lawsuit by the building owner, so the owner is suing the property manager, what's going to be our strongest claim? Criminal conspiracy with the maintenance worker. I mean, conspiracy. I don't know if we have conspiracy here, but okay. B, liability for conversion of the stolen property. Well, it doesn't say that the property manager is taking the stolen goods and converting it into money. That seems like a stretch. I think I can eliminate B. C, breach of duty of loyalty profiting from the theft. I don't see where they profited. Okay, so we'll eliminate that. And D, breach of the duty of care for failing to supervise and implement controls. In the lawsuit, which claim is against the property manager strongest? I would say they failed to supervise his duty of care, like taking care to do something. And you know what? I'm going to have to go with D because criminal conspiracy, I don't know if the property manager conspired. He just didn't stop it from happening when he could have. So I'm going to go with D. Let me triple check. Is D correct? You all said D. Everybody said D online and in the Zoom room. And our answer is boom. Yes, it is D. Nice. All right. 182. A property homeowner's insurance policy has a replacement cost value of $300,000. The policy requires 80% co-insurance. A fire causes a $100,000 in damage, and the owner has a $200,000 in coverage. What will the company pay? All right, we got to talk co-insurance. Remember, co-insurance is the idea that if you do what the insurance company asks you to do, then when there's damage, they'll cover it. But it also says, hey, if we ask you to do X, Y, and Z, and you only cover Y and Z, now that there's a problem, now that you have a claim, we're not covering everything. We'll cover whatever, how much you covered. So in this instance, the property was worth $300,000 and the policy required 80% coinsurance. So if I take $300,000, that's 3 million. Boop, boop, there we go. And I multiply it by 80%. That is, you should have gotten coverage for $240,000. But instead, this person got $200,000 in coverage. So now we've got to compare 200,000 is what percentage of $240,000? 200,000 is what percentage of 240,000? Now, if you get here and you're like, I'm not quite sure. I was like, somebody's at my front door. That would be my groceries. I don't think I got anything that melted, so it should be fine. Plus, it's cold here. It's like 40 degrees. So 200,000 is what percent of 240? I know it's going to be higher than 50% because 50% would be 120. So, but if you're trying to figure out how to put this in your calculator, what I'm going to do is $200,000 divided by 240,000. And that's going to give me 83%, 0.8333. So if this owner had done 100% of what they were supposed to do, they would have gotten a coverage for 240. But because they only did $200,000, they only did 83. I was going to say, this is 83% of what they were supposed to do. They should have done 240. They only did 83% of their responsibility. Now that there is a fire of $100,000, the insurance company is going, look, you did 100,000, you did 83% of what you were supposed to do. So now we'll cover 83% of the damage. Like we're only responsible for covering 83% of the damage. So $100,000 times the 83% gives us the 83,33333 repeating. That would be our answer, and that is B. This is all about co-insurance. Co-insurance, which is really huge if you all are in the real estate business to understand. Right? You want to understand co-insurance. Job. But if that is not making sense, please let me know and I will explain it again. It's one of these small things, like once you get it, you're fine, and it's an easy point. But if you don't know what it's talking about, you're like, I don't know. I want to make sure you got this one. All right, 183. A commercial tenant has
Candace,
a,
I have
yeah,
a
go for
question
it.
real quick.
Mhm.
How did you come up with the 240?
240, it came from here. 240 came from here. 300,000 times 80%. And that comes from the policy requires 80% coinsurance, which is saying you've got to get an insurance policy where you would get paid back at least 80% of the value. So if the value is 300,000, you needed to get a policy that was at least 80% of that value, which is the 240.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah,
Good. No, I'm glad you asked. Yay. Mhm. So since they only got 200,000, they only did 83% of what they were supposed to, which means this company is only going to cover 83% of the damage. Make sense? Good.
yes.
Good, good, good. Yay. I'm sick of blue though. I know that. Boom. 183. A commercial tenant has a net lease. Net lease is important. Which expenses is the tenant most likely responsible for? So, which expenses is the tenant most likely responsible for in addition to base rent? Well, whenever I think of a net lease, I always think you have net leases and you have gross leases. Whenever I think of a net lease, I think the tenant is responsible for, maintenance, utilities, taxes, upkeep, stuff like that. Just coming up with words. Gross lease is like when you rent a house to live in, you pay just base rent. If the taxes go up, that's not a you problem. And a gross lease, the landlord pays and has got to worry about all those kind of wandering things. In a net lease, the tenant is saying that's my issue. And I always remember that net and tenant, the TEN and the NAT. That's how I remember it. So, which expenses is the tenant most likely responsible for in addition to base rent? Only property taxes? No. Property taxes, insurance, and maintenance? That sounds good. Only the landlord's mortgage payments? No. Only the landlord's management fees? No. Our answer clearly is B. It's clearly B. We got that one. Okay. 184. And guys, when I say like this is what I'm thinking about literally while I'm talking to you all. When I read the word net, I'm trying to talk to you all, sound coherent, and my brain is firing neurons that goes net, tenant, net versus gross, blah, blah, blah. That is literally how I remember all this stuff. It's not like all of it just comes rushing into my head and I instantly know the answer. All these things, these mnemonic devices and stories, I got to call them up too because there's a lot. Nobody expects you to know every answer. Boom, 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 boom. In fact, that's a good way to fail. You just want to make sure you're thinking about everything and remember what you can. So 184. A seller lists a waterfront property. During the listing period, the local government announces plans to construct a wastewater treatment plant 500 yards away from the property. That sucks. The seller learns of this but instructs the listing agent not to disclose it. What should the agent do? So we're looking to see how should we handle the fact this agent knows now about what we would consider a material fact, like something, an adverse fact about the property. And that's usually most states going to be some kind of definition of a piece of information that would cause somebody to think twice about whether or not they wanted to buy this property. I think we can all agree that nobody wants wastewater treatment that close to your property. Ew. So the seller said, do not tell it, listing agent. The listing agent should totally be like, yeah, I'm not going to jail for you. Let's see which one of our options is closest. A, withdraw from the listing only if the buyer makes an offer. Yeah, I don't think that's covering you enough. I don't like that. You should have said something not just because there's a buyer now. B, disclose only if a buyer specifically asks about nearby government projects. I mean, once again, I think you're going to get sued. I would consider that an adverse material fact, and that needs to be shared. So, no. C, disclose the information because agents must disclose material facts that could affect property value regardless of the seller's wishes. I like that one. Or D, follow the seller's instructions because of the duty of obedience. I already don't like the word obedience or budget. And then you want me to go to jail? Absolutely not. So 184, our answer is C. And hopefully you all are getting in the habit, not that I did it on that one math question, of eliminating the other answer choices. Eliminate the other answer choices. And even if you're not sure you love C, then you can be like, but I know it has to be C because it really is not A, B, or D. Probably should have done that earlier. I should probably have done that. 185. A buyer and a seller are negotiating a purchase contract. The buyer's agent emails the seller's agent a signed offer at 4 p.m. on Friday. The seller's agent opens the email Monday morning at 9 a.m. and presents it to the seller. Under the mailbox rule as applied to electronic communications, when was the offer received? All right. So I know that if you're in an area that uses the mailbox rule, the mailbox rule says, hey, even if the seller or the seller's agent doesn't know about it, the minute that signed offer is received, we consider ourselves under contract. So if you drop it in a mailbox, it's considered received the moment you let go of possession as the seller, and let go of possession, and you're like, okay. If we're talking about emails or faxes, we're talking about, hey, this is considered received once it's received electronically by either the fax machine or the email, folder. So let's see what we got here. When was the offer received? A, it's jurisdiction dependent. Electronic communication receipt is typically determined when it reaches the recipient's email server or when they access it, depending on applicable law. B, and I like that one because it does depend on where you live. B, when the seller's agent opened and read the email on Monday. C, 4 p.m. Friday when the email was sent. Or D, the offer is invalid because it was sent electronically. Well, I know it's not D. And B and C, well, it depends. It depends on what jurisdiction you're in. So it's not B, it's not C. Our best answer choice here is A. That is our best answer choice. We're good with that one, hopefully. 186. A real estate agent shows a rental property to a prospective tenant who uses a wheelchair. The tenant asks if the landlord will install a ramp at the main entrance. Under the Fair Housing Act, which statement is correct? So we're looking for the one that's correct. 3 of these will be wrong. 1 of these will be false under fair housing. So A, the landlord can refuse the modification if the building was constructed before 1991. Yeah, I don't really like that one. You have to do whatever's reasonable. B, the tenant has the right to make the modification at their own expense, and the landlord may require restoration to the original condition upon move out for exterior modifications. I like that one. C, wheelchair ramps are only required in buildings with 4 or more units. That's not true. Or D, the landlord must install and pay for the ramp as a reasonable accommodation. Well, no, you can, because of this law, the tenant, if they're asking for, something to be different for them, to make it easier for them, then they get the right to have it done, but they're probably going to have to pay for it, and then they could be asked to take it back. So we know B is the better answer. All right. Now we're saying under the Fair Housing Act. It does not say under ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. Remember, it is the Americans with Disabilities Act that says, oh, you're a commercial space, you must, or residential, whatever, you must provide, ADA accessible entrances. Like you have to. So the key here, it's not D, because that would have to be getting involved with the ADA. That's not a D. Right? That is the act that says, oh, you have to give access to these public buildings. B just talks about, oh, you can let everybody live there that wants to, regardless of if they're differently abled, you can charge them to make the changes as long as they're reasonable, and then you can ask them to pay to take it back. All right. 187. A listing agent receives an offer that includes a personal letter from the buyer describing their family and cultural background. Oh, no. Oh, no, 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 no. We don't want to do that. In some jurisdictions, the presenting buyer love letters to sellers raises concerns because I said so? Because you explained your family and your cultural background. That is easy prey for somebody to discriminate against you based on either. So these buyer love letters, I know they were popular for a while, but let me tell you, do not do that. So is it A, there raises concerns because A, they are considered unprofessional marketing tactics? I mean, I think it's unprofessional, but that one's kind of... B, they are not legally binding parts of the offer. Well, yeah, they may not be legally binding parts of the offer, but that's not what's raising concern. C, they may introduce fair housing concerns, by allowing seller decisions to be influenced by the buyer's race, familial status, religion, or national origin. I like that one, but let's check D. They create additional contractual obligations. No. Excuse me. So if it's between A and C, we really like C because we're talking about this fair housing concern. That's the problem with them, right? And whether we consider them professional or unprofessional, really, illegally, this could be a huge fair housing just bomb waiting to explode. Right. 188. An appraiser estimates the replacement cost of a new building to be at $450,000. Depreciation, or physical deterioration, is estimated at $60,000, functional obsolescence at $25,000, and external obsolescence at $35,000. The land value is $120,000. What is the indicated property value using the cost approach? So we're looking for the property value using the cost approach. Well, first, we know that land never depreciates, so it's going to be at least $120,000. I mean, it's got to be plus something. Well, we have a new building that was worth $450,000. But the physical deterioration aspect of this, right? We got to take off money for that. So that's $60,000. Right? And you have the functional obsolescence of $25,000, and you have the external obsolescence of $35,000. So yeah, it started at $450,000, but we've lost some value. So I'm going to do $450,000 subtract 60, subtract 25, subtract 35. That gives me $330,000. And that would be the depreciated structure. Then we got to add that 120 back in. So now, because we've lost some value, our total is going to be the 120 plus the 330. I'm really struggling over my words here. That's $450,000. That is the new value. And what do you know? That matches A. Nice job, guys.
This question confused me.
Okay.
I got the right answer 450, but because it started with the 450 and again I was getting the answer 450, so I was like very not sure whether I'm doing it correct or not. So yeah,
Yeah,
thank
they
you
will do
for,
that to you.
yeah.
And that's one of my favorite sayings is you have to know what you know. Now, Val, you asked why add the 120 back in? Because the building itself was 450, and then the land value is 120. And remember, land never depreciates. Land never depreciates. So we had to depreciate the structure. You still get the value of the land. So hopefully that makes sense, Val. All right, let's do this last one, and then I think I should maybe make some crepes, eat a little something. 189. A buyer under contract hires a home inspector. The inspector discovers knob and tube wiring throughout the attic. Does everybody know what knob and tube wiring is? You know what? I'm going to show you. I'm going to stop right there. And this is something I found in class, like when I'm teaching actual classes. My students are like, I have no idea what you're talking about, Candace. So, knob and tube wiring, right? And so here's a picture. You used to have houses where your wiring looked like this. Now, this is very knobs and tubes. It's very old, right? You might want to have an electrician look at it. I'm not saying it's terrible, but you need to know that it is old. Right? So now that you know what knob and tube wiring is, let's go back. A buyer under contract hires a home inspector. The inspector discovers knob and tube wiring throughout the attic. The inspector report notes this as a safety concern. The listing agent tells the buyer's agent, "Don't worry, that wiring has been there for 80 years and it's fine." The statement by the listing agent is most problematic because did you see the age of that stuff? Are you sure it's fine? That's like smelling the milk and being like, it's past the date by 2 weeks. I'm sure it's fine. Are you sure? So, we're looking for the statement is most problematic because the listing agent has a duty to encourage the buyer to purchase the property. Yeah, no. The listing agent should have known all about wiring before the inspection. No, we are a jack of all trades and a master of none. Most of the time as an agent, you're not going to have to be like, and this is exactly X, Y, and Z. No. C, the listing agent is not qualified to offer opinions on electrical systems that there and may be exposing both the seller and themselves to liability for misrepresentation. Yep, I like that one. But let's check D. The listing agent is violating the inspector's copyright on the report. No. Our answer is C. And you all learned about knob and tube wiring. So I call that a win. I also call it an end of our questions for the day. Hopefully you learned something. If not, watch it again. I'm sure something will come up. At the very least, you learned that I probably should eat something before these. I did have water though, so that was good. I didn't mess up on that. So if you have any questions, you all know how to reach me. Remember, this Sunday, I'm going to try and keep pushing it back, especially because it is Mother's Day, and I know a lot of you all have plans. So I'm going to do 7 p.m. again on Sunday. Got to celebrate the moms. And I will talk to you all later. Bye, everybody.
Thank
And
you. Goodbye.